Okay, Tommy, so I'm going to show you how to add the parallax background scrolling, just in case you run into any issues. So I have more folders in here, but you should only get these two folders in the package. In here is just the image effects, which you can import. I believe you can delete the plugins, but I don't know. If you don't have it already, it should be fine. If so, try deleting this folder and see if it still works if you import the image effects yourself. I don't know. It should work just fine. But anyways, you're going to go into the parallax background folder, and there's a prefab in here called UI Cam, and you're just going to drag and drop it into the scene. You can go ahead and zero it out. It doesn't matter where it's placed. It's going to draw to the screen either way. And just to show you what you need to do is all of this should already be set up. It's already on depth only UI. I already made a -1 depth, so that should be behind your camera. And then let's say you have your camera here, whatever camera you're using in the game, change it to depth only. And then, I mean, you're not going to need skybox or anything because that's what the background's for. Change it to depth only and get rid of the UI. If you're using the UI for something, I guess we'll try to figure something else out. Maybe I'll make a different layer. Or you can just make a different layer and make everything on here that layer. Anyways, to show you how this works, both cameras are in there right now. And I just dragged and dropped it in, and it's already working with what I already have set up in the prefab. So to show you how the other one works is the UI cam is not going to draw anything that you put in the game. That's what your camera is for. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag and drop an object in here. 0, 0. I'm going to go ahead and make everything at 0, 0 and drag the camera back. I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop a cube in here. I'm going to zero it out, and I'm going to put it like 30 in front of the camera, maybe rotate it a little bit, and I'm going to put in just a directional light so you can see it better. Alright, so now when I play it, you'll see that there's a cube in there. It's kind of might be hard to see. Let me bring it back a little bit. Let's go to 15, half the distance. So this would be like the Spacey Bump character or whatever. And as you can see, everything works just fine. Or that's how it's basically going to work. Alright, to edit, you're going to go to the, don't worry about any of this. Everything should already be in there. All you should have to do to get this to work is go to the background scrolling and change everything in here. So what you would do is when you want your layer, you add your layer obviously, you go into here, and then you'll have your background texture, your midground texture, and your foreground texture. You're probably going to want to make sure they have alphas on them so that at least you can see through them. At least all of them except for the background. And then, so from there, you're going to want to say, how fast do I want this to scroll? That's the tempo. 0.5 seems to be like a nice, simple pace. So 1 is decently fast. Or 1 is basically 1 speed was what you saw with those stars. So that's 1. Anyways, so that's where you'll set that. If you want this particular texture to have bloom, you'll click bloom active. Otherwise, just keep it off. If it's on a texture, it could make it look really bad. But if you have stuff like the stars like that with a lot of black, then the bloom will look really good. Anyways, so let's say I'm going to go ahead and make sure it doesn't maximize. So right now it's at 1 speed, and all of these are at 1, meaning it's just going to be normal speed. But let's say I want the background to move a little bit slower than what it normally is. I can go ahead and drop this down. I wonder why it's not working. That should be working. I'm not really sure why. Because I actually implemented it to where you could adjust that during. Yeah, that should be working. That's really weird that it's not. I know it should work if you implement it beforehand, but like this should really be slowing it down right here. This is really weird. Give me a minute. Okay, I figured it out, and this is kind of an issue. I put it on the move X, but I didn't put it on the move Y. So go ahead and add this. All you just need to do is just line up these multiplications with the layers, theme, foreground, like that. And then just go ahead and copy paste that over to this side here. To the Y. Because I was like, it was working earlier, but it's because I put it in the wrong. I didn't put it in the move Y, but I did put it in the move X. So, I mean, I could just do this and then re-export it to you, or you could just go in there and just change it real quick. It's in the update right here, and if you just scroll down pretty much to the bottom in these giant if move X move Y, just copy paste this X portion where it says times layers theme and then the variable times, just copy paste that down. And now to show you what I was really talking about here. Okay, see, I go to the stars here. When I change this background multiplier, it's going to see how it's slowed down a lot. So if you want to make the background slower than its default setting, then you can go ahead and do that. And you can even slow down the midground, and you can even slow down the foreground if you want. Another way of testing it is to just change the scroll speed until it's at a speed you want, and then you can just change the tempo. But if you want the default speed and you just want to use these dials to get it to work properly, then you can do that, it's fine. But that's what they're there for. So if you want the background to be just a little bit extra slow as compared to what it was to the default, you'll just drop down the background multiplier, midground multiplier, foreground multiplier. Not sure why the tips aren't showing up. There you go. So yeah, multiply speed of background to slow it down. And then you have transition speed, and that's how fast it's going to change from one texture to the other. So when I basically went from this cloud background into this one, it's how fast that texture changes, how it fades in and out. So 0.2 is pretty slow. So if I were to make that like 1, it should be super fast. When I transition back into it, it should be really quick. Just like that. And then you'll have depth speed, and that's how much the depth changes. And it's not going to change here on this dial. I mean, you can change it, and then it'll be set in there. But if you want to test the depth, you can just change it right here. But this is what the depth does. So the greater the depth, the further apart the midground and the background are, or basically how far apart the images are from each other. And the depth speed is how fast it'll transition from one layer to the next. So if I make it like fast, you'll see the depth change happen quickly from one background to the next. The speed also transitions. The speed of the, as you can see, like how it slows down over time rather than abruptly, the scrolling. That is based on the transition speed as well. If you want, I can put another variable in there so it's different as well. And then you have the music clip that'll play when it's in this theme. And that's it. So that's what you do to add them. There's nothing to it. Now there's two ways you can change the layer. You can hit the left and right arrow, and it'll change between the theme numbers. And it obviously, you know, make sure you don't go outside the list. The other way to do is just change the number right here, but obviously if you put in a number that's bigger than the list, you're going to get your error. So if you wanted to change it from another script, you can change it there. In addition to that, you can do X scrolling. And obviously you can change direction by going negative or positive. Now both of them don't work at the same time. If we need that, let me know, I'll put it in there. But so if you want it to scroll different directions, you can do that. And then just to show you how this works here, I'm going to slow down the scrolling speed real quick. So for the ratio, 1/3, it's how much the next ground in the background is going to move compared to the previous. So how fast the midground is moving compared to the foreground, and how fast the background is moving compared to the midground. So 1/3 is the midground is going to move at 1/3 the speed of the foreground. and then the background is going to move at 1/3 the speed of the midground. Now you can change this to 1/2, and then it'll just be half of each other, and as you go up, they get closer to the same speed. Up to 4/7. I mean, there's no point in going higher than that. So in this instance, they're moving, each background as you go further back is moving at 0.57 times the speed of the previous. 1/3 seems to be a pretty good one if you want that scrolling effect, but if you want it to almost be like you're changing perspective, you would want to go to a higher number. And that's all there is at this point. The scrolling speed based off of the music is completely up to you. You'll just change the tempo yourself. I mean, I could change the tempo up to 2. Obviously, it's not going to work well for this one, but... And then the background multiplier is on, but... Freaking crazy ass speed. Obviously, this is like a really slow song-ish. So you'd want to go something like that. That's it. If you want to get rid of like all this stuff in this folder, the only thing you need are the background, the foreground, and the midground materials. Oh, and obviously the UI cam, lerp derp, and parallax scroll. But like all of these images, you don't need these. I mean, right now they're using the images for the test, but you can get rid of them. There are normals in here. It's not implemented on the texture. Let me know if you want to implement parallax in. I mean, I know it's called parallax scrolling, but it's not really parallax. So if you actually want to put parallax in there so it has like a depth, a 3D depth to the actual texture, then I will put that in there. However, I figured that we might not do that just because the backgrounds aren't really detailed to be 3D with parallax. We can, and I mean, it might give the stars more of a 3D pop, but I mean, I really don't foresee there being enough detail to do that. So right now it's just using diffuse, normal diffuse textures. You don't need to drag and drop anything in here or change any of these values. Just leave them as they are. The one thing you can change that the script doesn't change is the alpha value here, and that's just obviously transparency, literally. But I just put them all as completely transparent. The shader's kind of controlling that to make it look the way it's looking. Let me know if you want to change that. But for the most part, if you don't want it to be transparent, you can just make the actual texture itself not transparent, and then you're good to go. Otherwise, just keep it. Otherwise, make it transparent so you can see through it. Everything else is gonna work out just fine. I actually have a variable that changes the transition, like how you see it fade in and out. I took it out because there's no point in having it in there for using it. But if you want it in there, I guess I can throw it in there. There's really no point in changing it. It's going to change it during the script anyways. But that should be it. There's really not much to it. I was kind of wondering why that transition speed between those two were kind of like poppy. Yeah, that's better. It is a little quirky sometimes. Just let me know if there's any big issues with it, and I will go in and fix it. I'm pretty sure with how the game is going to run it, you really won't run into any issues. It's mostly running into issues when you do it really fast. As you can see, sometimes this cloud texture looks weird, like that, and it's not right. I think that has to do with the shader, but sometimes it is right. But if you're using textures like the stars, then it shouldn't be an issue. Anyways, this tutorial kind of ran long. I just wanted to go over the parallax scroll here, just so you know how everything works. And that's it. Hopefully that is super simple for you. Just drag and drop it in there and everything. Alright, let me know if you have any questions.